reply. Thank you.
Deep breath. All right. Well, we'll start first of all with Senator Byrne. This morning raises the peculiarities of Bus Connects, wherein there are opportunities, great opportunities, but also peculiar omissions, and I would have great sympathy with and completely support your needing to advocate for the fact that there needs to be a bus service into it. What would appear to make total sense doesn't always translate into the plans, and that has been my own experience of Bus Connects in Dublin. I would urge you to have a meeting with the NTA and with Bus Connects themselves and reason it out. They have been amenable to change and to listening and to advocacy groups on this regard, and that's been my experience. But certainly it probably at some point merits, as Bus Connects rolls out for you, for across the country, Cork being the next major movement, as Cathaoirleach could be sensitive to also, we need to probably have a debate with the Minister to bring it to find out, because unfortunately on commencements in this matter, because this is run by Bus Connects under the NTA, the Minister doesn't find himself particularly accountable. So having a debate on Bus Connects and changes and all of that in which you would get to raise it, I think would be very important. Senator Keoghan arises the issue of the review of the termination of pregnancy arising from the repeal of the 8th, and then also the legislation arising from that. I think that's still, it's a matter that's still in progress. We're seeing various pieces of legislation arise from it, and I don't think that anything is set in stone as yet. Being an outlier, even if we were, which we're not, and I take your point that we are not, but even if we isn't necessarily, sometimes outliers are actually leaders in making changes, so that's not necessarily a negative thing, in fact. Senator Dolan speaks about the spacing plan in relation to Roscommon University Hospital. It's clear that they are carrying out really innovative, fantastic, very progressive and an amazing service to the community, which you rightly call out in everything that you're saying about the services are really quite extensive there. But not having a spacing plan when there is an urgent need and money allocated for further development and further services to the public does appear to be quite odd. So it would be totally reasonable that we support a debate, I would imagine, on that. Senator Crowe, you first of all echoed the original sentiments on the House regarding, my apologies, my own notes, I can't read my own writing. But the buses. Sorry, you were supporting Senator Kine, and I have a note under his that you had supported that also. And yes, and I'll come to that, but I acknowledge that. The HSE recruitment freeze, there is no doubt there is hardships going on as a consequence of it, when we also read headlines and we see that the contracting in and agency workers are being funded when we have a recruitment freeze, when you would imagine that the position it would be simpler to just lift the recruitment freeze. However, I do concur with the position of government, which is that the HSE need to be accountable, a point very well made by yourself. They need to keep their budgeting under control. However, there is huge progress, and it is a shame to see any stall to that progress at all, and I think it is incumbent on us to have a statement and a discussion with Minister Donnelly on it, because it's affecting all such things. I see for myself even, it has implications on who sits and attends meetings of drug task forces. It has really quite wide ramifications in that at the moment. So I think that debate would be necessary. Senator Gavin made a number of points. The first this morning, I am very happy to contact the Leader's Office immediately to ensure that a letter would go out. The Cathaoirleach can speak for himself. But it does seem very peculiar that money is allocated for 180 projects and across the country and elsewhere, and that there would be any impediment into getting that money out into the hands of the projects is absolutely ridiculous. Platform economy, totally with you there, brother. There is no question. We need a debate. We need to understand and get underneath what are the reservations that government have, and to understand that on the floor of the House and be able to do a deep dive into that. I don't believe that anyone sets out to deliberately obfuscate the rights here, and I know that I have had robust debates behind closed doors, as I'm sure you can imagine. But the fact is, and I think about it any time food is delivered, and think, actually, this person is potentially being exploited, being abused, being paid minimal wage, is risking their lives as they cycle around the city. It's a frightening prospect, particularly in twilight hours, that a guy desperate to make as much money as he can. The whole business model is an obscene one with regard to the rights of those individuals. So I think it is important that we have a debate on the floor of this House. Senator Kearney, throughout my time here listening to you, you have been an amazing advocate for the school transport system, as has many others, and in raising where there are. The fact is that parents need to make plans around their children. You're completely and utterly right. And while it is welcome, and I'm sure no doubt down to a lot of your own advocacy, that the situation with regard to Moy Cullen and the St. Paul's Oak Throarage, that situation is being resolved. At the same time, it's totally unacceptable that there will be 4 months of a delay where parents are left. And in Dublin, perhaps you have alternatives of buses, you have alternatives of lifts, you have alternatives of neighbours. There is where you have, but in a more rural situation, or in a situation that is more reliant on school buses, it is really important that there's an urgent response. It's unacceptable that there isn't, and I think the call for statements has occurred before, and important that we do it now again and have statements on the House. Senator Craughwell has proposed a change to the order of business, as has been seconded by Senator Keoghan, regarding looking for Minister O'Brien to come in to explain his state of knowledge regarding the Supreme Court hearing. I think it would be reasonable to say that the government would have had well knowledge of this, because it has to go through the High Court before it goes to the Supreme Court. Nothing is jettisoned straight into from the Supreme Court or any lower court straight into the Supreme Court. Thank you. I think it's for me to say.
If you listened, I said it leapfrogged the Court of Appeal.
Senator Craughwell, you had your opportunity to speak. The leaders were planning to debate.
No, but we've got to be accurate in what
Senator Craughwell.
The matter was in the High Court.
Thank you.
The matter was in the High Court and had to go into the High Court. So it's not that it just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It didn't. The matter was in the High Court and lost in the High Court, and it is now in the Supreme Court. And it is so that the government were unaware of it is a false accusation. There is no such thing that the government wouldn't be aware of it under any circumstances in this. So what level of knowledge? Of course they would have had a level of knowledge that there is a Supreme Court case. That said, that is the normal function of the Supreme Court within their remit. They do hear cases like this on a reasonably frequent basis. There are a number of things to that. First of all, it is unreasonable for us to discuss a particular case. The next thing is there were commitments made to advocacy groups for anything up to 20 years to bring forward a referendum to address wording on the Constitution.
This is going beyond. It's a simple question.
Senator Craughwell, you are a member of the House for a long time.
I am indeed.
You know the rules of the House better than anyone here.
Absolutely.
And you stretch them to your own advantage at times, and you.
Well, I think they're being stretched now by the
leader was replying. She didn't interrupt you when you were giving your presentation at the order of business. The leader is entitled to reply. You have an amendment to the order of business. If you're unhappy with the reply from the leader, it is your right to put the amendment to the order of business as you've proposed. If you don't, that's your choice. But please allow the leader to reply to your presentation. And
I'd like it to be sort of fairly accurate, you know.
You're accusing me of not being accurate. That is grossly unfair.
Thank you.
And grossly wrong. Absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong.
I would ask you to withdraw that.
I appreciate that it may come in the way.
I would ask you to withdraw that.
Why would I withdraw it?
Because the leader is giving a reply to the. You can resume your seat, please.
Sorry, no, Cahill, on a point of order. My call for the Minister to come here was to explain what knowledge he had when he set the date. That was it.
Okay, and the leader is giving you a response, and if you're not happy with the response...
The leader has told me they knew.
If you're not happy with the response, then it is your prerogative to propose an amendment to the order of business to request the Minister to come to the House.
The acting leader just said they knew.
Thank you. Leader, without interruption, please.
The government would be aware of cases in the Supreme Court. They are obliged to know that. But so, as to Minister O'Brien, I can't say for absolute. I'm not authorised to do that. But it is a function of the Supreme Court is challenging. But the fact of the matter is about referendums. You have accused the government of a sinister intervention here. You used the word sinister, that it is sinister actions on the part of the government.
Thank you, Senator Connor.
You have accused it, and I've also followed your social media, you have accused it. The fact is the commitment to addressing the disparity of views, or the views around the Constitution, are matters that have been commitments of government for and in discussion with the Women's Caucus, with various other groups and NGOs for a very long time. A very long time. The fact is that the matter has been raised on numerous occasions, and there is a sequence of events. On many occasions in this House, I have heard you stand up and speak regarding councillors. There are local elections, as you know. There are potentially general election within the next 12 to 13 months. It's reasonable that a referendum would have been called, so I do have a difficulty with it being ascribed a conspiracy theory and a sinister. Do I respond to this stage saying I'm not accepting the amendment? Yeah, so I won't be accepting the amendment on the order of business. And finally, Senator O'Loughlin spoke very much with regard to the call by the government yesterday, by our own Taoiseach and Spain, working with Spain for a review of the trade agreement with the EU and Israel, and that the Commission take note of that. The fact is that is a very vital and very important call, and very suitable intervention. Innocent civilians are being butchered, and we need something done as a matter of urgency. So I'm very proud that we led that call yesterday with Spain. I also welcome the decision by the Oireachtas to make the allocation and the commitment of funding the 20 million to UNRWA. I think that he satisfied himself on behalf of the state with regard to that, but the fact is that money needs to support the civilian population there. And also she congratulated, as we do, the appointment of Michael O'Flaherty. And it probably would be at some point an interesting thing to have statements on the Council of State or the Council of Europe and its role, and for the House to have an opportunity to explore and to hear that maybe within the reform of the Seanad, that might be a debate that could be considered, because I think that there are these mysterious entities that we all don't know and everything about, and would be an opportunity to share with the public on. Thank you.